No matter what, people will commit to misunderstanding you. What's most important is your commitment to understanding yourself. Hello, you guys. My name is Nkirka Madani, known as NK, and welcome back to Misunderstood. What 6 months of celibacy taught me. Today, we are going deep once again, and we are talking about a topic that I haven't fully unpacked on the entirety of this podcast thus far. This topic is very important to me. It will allow you guys to really understand more about me. I very carefully select what I say on this podcast. It is my baby, it is my domain, and every single thing that is said is because I want it to be said. So with that in mind, this topic has been on my mind for a while. And also I realized that we are still in love month. We're still in February. So it felt fitting to put it right here, right now in the podcast. There are a lot of things I want to talk about in this episode specifically. This topic is a lot more personal. This will probably be one of the most personal episodes so far on Misunderstood. Feel ready to share it. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. But before we get into any of it, take some time right now to rate this show, Misunderstood, 5 stars. As always, I really appreciate the viewership of this podcast, and the fact that it is growing is so exciting, coming from the person who has made it their mission to share very openly and authentically and help other people. It makes me so proud that Misunderstood is growing and evolving. A very big part of the growth of this podcast is rating the podcast. Following the podcast is also important as well. I want to make that very clear, but rating is, I believe, even more important because it tells the algorithm of Spotify and Apple that this show should be pushed out to more people, which is the goal. I want to continue to bring this show to you guys weekly. That is my objective, but the ratings do very much determine how that goes. So if you have not already, please take some time right now. It is a free and easy and very quick way to show support to this show and really help the creator who has been consistently showing up for over a year now. So if you have not already, please take some time to rate this show, Misunderstood, 5 stars on both Apple and Spotify. Follow the show as well. And if you feel so inclined to, leave a written rating on Apple. Thank you so much. All right. So I wrote down a few things that celibacy taught me in the last 6 months. Before I go on, I think it's also important to say that we have range on this podcast. We talk about a lot of non-serious things, but we also do talk about a lot of serious things. I think this specific episode will go pretty deep into this specific sector of life. The podcast is my safest space, and it's very liberating to share things that I've been through in order to really reflect on them, but also to help other people. So before we get into the items that I've learned in this 6-month span, I think it's important to first talk about the term celibacy. So if you don't know, celibacy essentially just means not having sex, abstaining from sex. That's truly the basic definition of celibacy. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a reflection on the past 6 months, and truthfully, abstaining from sex for all this time has really given me so much clarity. It has really helped me grow within myself. It's helped me improve my discernment. I've always had really good discernment, but it's helped me improve it significantly. It's also helped me not settle for less. And I'm going to unpack more in detail, but I just wanted to give that overarching message at the top of this conversation. I think it is important to start with saying how positively I feel throughout this period of time. I think it's also important to say that there will probably be a misunderstanding, as with most of the topics I talk about. I think someone can draw a misunderstanding from anything I've ever said on this podcast. Absolutely. And we're not here to dispute that. But what we are here to do is remember who we are and remember our why. I'm sharing this to connect and help other people, but also do a self-reflection so I can look back on this later. People who want to misunderstand me might think that, why are you sharing this? This is supposed to be a personal thing. Or people could really go into the negative and say things like, you shouldn't be having sex, you're a blah. We can really extrapolate a lot of negative things that people might have to say about this topic. But My first and foremost reason for sharing this is to reflect and also to help anyone else who has maybe struggled with the topic of sex, who has maybe struggled with their self-worth when it comes to sex, or feeling pressured, or feeling like you're missing out or being left out. All of that is what I want to cover in this episode. All right, I think that was enough of a interlude for the conversation. Let's begin. I realized that a lot of my recent episodes, I have been doing a numbered list, and that's helped me just focus my thoughts. But I do want to have this one be more of a conversation rather than saying number one, this, number two, this. So I'm just going to talk about the items that have been on my heart for this topic. The first thing I've learned in this period of time is that sex is not a flex. Growing up, and even in my early 20s, I really thought it was. When did I lose my virginity? 19? I lost my virginity at 19. At that point, I remember feeling so behind, and I remember feeling like everyone was already doing it and everyone was more mature than me, or everybody was wanted earlier than me. And I felt like the kid who got picked last in kickball, and that sucked. Truthfully, looking back on that was 12 years ago, but I remember that being something I thought was so important, and that you get bragging rights if you've done it. Now, as a 31-year-old, I realize that it's not the flex people think it is, and it's not the flex I thought it was. Granted, I was a baby. I was 19. I was objectively young at the time, but so many people were having it so much earlier than me, and I did feel behind. But all that to say, sex is not a flex. And this past 6 months specifically, I've really taken that to heart. I realized that I can have sex whenever I want to. I feel like someone might take that statement negatively, and if so, who cares, whatever. But I'm saying that to drive the point home. It's not a flex because I can access it whenever I want. I'm just choosing not to. I'm just choosing to be to myself and not partake in the act. And if we want to really go there in this conversation, I think it is relevant to talk about the fact that so many people my age and even younger than me have unplanned pregnancies, children that they didn't plan for, didn't want, and all the emotional and physical pain that comes with those choices. I'm never going to shame anybody for what they choose to do. However, I know what I do and don't want to do, and I'm standing by that. And truthfully, I'm not jealous of anybody in those positions. I'm not, because I have just chosen to not put myself in a situation that I didn't want to be in. Yes, there are caveats to every single thing I said. I really don't want someone to at some point clip this and make it sound like I am not being sensitive to people who did not have that choice and put in unfortunate situations that were out of their control. We are not talking about them. So please, 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 please do not misunderstand me there. I'm talking about the people who are in the other bucket, because there are multiple buckets here. And I've reflected a lot about the fact that no one is better than anyone just because they've gotten laid and just because they had sex and just because they have frequent sex. There are times where, again, very, very early in my 20s, I felt that. I felt like I was inferior because I wasn't having sex and I wasn't with a partner, or I didn't have a consistent person who I was sleeping with. I felt all of those feelings. I felt them so, so deeply. But truly, no one is better than anyone just because they're having more sex, which is why I say sex is not a flex. It doesn't give you a leg up on anyone. It really doesn't. It is an act. It truly doesn't make you better than anyone else. So that is something that has been really helpful for me in this period of time specifically. The next thing I've learned through this 6-month period of time is that I do in fact have self-control. Truthfully, I didn't think I did, but this 6-month period has literally proven that I do have self-control when it comes to sex. I've made it this far, and this is my longest span of time without having sex. And again, that has brought a lot of clarity in my life. But it's very important for me to say that once upon a time, i.e. my early 20s, I would always say that I don't have self-control when it comes to sex. There is a true chemical craving for it. And because it was so new to me, I truly felt like I did not have self-control. I thought I need to have this very frequently to be in balance, and there's no way I could go past a week or a month without having it. I just couldn't even comprehend it at the time. Back then, I would crave it all the time and I would act on impulse alone. And I have grown up so much since then. And this bout of time has really shown me that I do, in fact, have self-control. Like I said, 6 months and counting. I feel really good about that. It's also really increased my discernment. I kind of mentioned that at the beginning of the episode, but it's increased my discernment on when I want to do it and who I want to do it with. I'm now very selective in that. And I won't just sleep with a guy just because I went on a date. And I won't just do the act because I have a temporary craving. And I also want to say there's nothing wrong with a temporary craving, and I'm going to talk about that a little later. But for me personally, my self-control has really allowed me to see things so much clearer when it comes to having sex. And that is really important for me. The next thing this 6-month celibacy period has taught me is that my value goes beyond my body. It goes far beyond my body. I came across this beautiful video on TikTok that completely aligns. This creator is named Emily.Orta. She wrote a beautiful poem, posted it as a video on TikTok, and every single girl needs to hear this. I don't care what stage of life you're in, every single girl needs to hear this because it is so true to the woman experience. I'm going to play that for you now.
I've given away my body more times than I've received flowers. And that's funny because I hate my body, but I love flowers. I met someone who didn't try to sleep with me on the first date, and I genuinely thought something was wrong with me. We spent time together and he never pushed. Never gave me that look that says this is what I'm really here for. And instead of feeling respected, I felt rejected. So I asked him if he didn't like me, like I was owed an explanation for why he wasn't trying to get me out of my clothes. And when he looked at me confused, something in me broke. Because I realized I've been so conditioned to believe that my body is the only thing about me worth wanting, that when someone showed up and didn't want it first, I couldn't understand it. Respect felt like disinterest. Being treated like a person instead of an opportunity felt wrong. I've handed myself over to people who saw me as disposable and told myself that at least they saw me at all. I've measured my worth by whether someone wanted to sleep with me, like that's the only way I mattered. And somewhere along the way, I decided that was just how it works. That's just what I'm worth. But standing there asking this man why he wasn't trying to take something from me, I realized how much I'd failed myself. Because the bar isn't supposed to be didn't try to sleep with me on the first date. That's not respect, that's basic decency. And I've been so starved for it that when it showed up, I didn't even recognize it. I don't want to be this person anymore. The one who panics when someone treats her well. The one who thinks her body is the only thing she has to offer. I've given away my body more times than I've received flowers. And I hate that about myself. But I'm learning that I don't have to keep accepting less. That my value isn't tied to whether someone wants to sleep with me. I've given away my body more times than I've received flowers. But maybe it's time I stop giving it away at all and start buying myself the flowers.
I literally get chills every single time I watch that video because I have been that girl. I have given my body away more times than I've received flowers. I need to take back control of my body and who I give it to and who I let into my sacred space. You are so much more than your body, and your value goes far beyond your body. I have been in this situation so many times where I fully believe that the only reason a guy is giving me any attention is because he is solely sexually attracted to me and nothing more. He does not want to have a relationship with me. He doesn't see a true future with me. He just wants me for my body. And when you think about that and really let that sit, it makes my stomach turn. It makes me feel like I'm being treated as truly just a warm body and not all that I am, not the person that you are in totality. And that just honestly makes me sick to my stomach. And it even makes it more sad because personally, I have been on a handful of first dates here in New York City specifically, and I was right every single time. I was made to feel like my only value is my body, and it doesn't matter how funny and kind and smart I am. That's all they saw. It's so hurtful and so painful to feel that way. I also want to say there have been many times that I have fed into my own impulse as well, and also caved in to that temporary feeling of being on these first dates and then sleeping with the guy. Subconsciously, I felt like I had to, which of course I did not. And yes, it gave me a temporary satisfaction, but that's it. And then I would go back to feeling very empty. A very big insecurity I once had is that my brain did not know how to comprehend someone liking me more than physically, someone wanting me more than just for sex. I spent most of my 20s feeling like that was my only value. And that is just so shitty, honestly. So this 6-month period of time has taught me a lot, has allowed me to separate those negative feelings I once had to how I feel currently. And I feel really good currently. I feel better about going into dating scenarios, going on dates, and being very clear within myself about knowing my value and also not caving in to the guy and not caving into a temporary satisfaction when I know that the person is honestly not worthy of the intimacy. And during this 6-month period of time, I think it's important to say this, I have gone on, I think 3 dates, which I guess that's not very many, but also I have just taken a full step back from the dating sphere intentionally, and I'm happy I did. But those 3 dates, 2 of them, I felt that very familiar feeling of feeling when the guy comes on very strong at the beginning because he's thinking in a very primal sexual nature. I felt that so many times. So I'm so in tune with how I feel on dates when I know that sex is at the forefront of their mind. They couldn't care less, truthfully, about me as a person. That's what they want. For those 2 dates within this past 6 months, I look back on them really proud of myself for ending the date when I felt comfortable, ending the date, taking myself home, and not giving in. I'm really, really proud of that because I know the value I bring, and I'm not going to let anybody make me feel like my body is all that I can offer, because that is far, far from the truth. The next thing this 6-month celibacy period has taught me is that emotions are deeply intertwined when you have sex. And I think that this is more so true for somebody who's an empath and somebody who is a lover girl like me. I fully believe that lover girls and hookup culture will never coincide. Those 2 things are so opposite and they will never align. I'm a lover girl. I know I am so filled with intention and I want a deep and fulfilling connection with somebody. That's the literal opposite of a hookup. A hookup is purely physical and you might not even see them again. That just makes me feel so empty. I've had my handful of hookups each and every time. I feel so, so empty and so sad and lonely. Here's the thing. I felt those ways before going into those situations, and now I'm still feeling that way, but I'm feeling it significantly more deeply. And then also I gave myself to somebody who doesn't value me and doesn't really care about me. They just want sex. I want to further highlight how emotions are intertwined by telling you guys a little bit more about my dating saga in New York City, specifically in 2023 when I dated a bartender here in New York City. I was only, I believe, 5 months into living in New York City. I met this bartender at the bar. He was working there. We slept together that night, and it turned into this whole saga of me and him hooking up. He wanted to be in a relationship with me. However, there were so many red flags about him, so many red flags, that I knew in my heart that this was not healthy and this was not a good idea. Truthfully, I should have just cut it off, and maybe I was a little selfish at that time. So it's important for me to be honest about that. But I remember telling him that I don't want to be in a relationship. We should just keep it casual. But there were so many emotions that inevitably grew within me because we were consistently sleeping together. And honestly, hate to say it, but he was one of the best I've ever had sexually. And I do think about that. But I can separate the act from the person because he was definitely not my person. He was definitely not providing a healthy space for me. A lot of environments with him were very volatile, which is a big red flag for me. But if I'm being honest, looking back and really reflecting on that, I stayed simply to hook up with him. And that's not fair for either of us. And I found myself feeling very emotionally dependent on him, even though I knew in my heart that we were not compatible for a relationship. The fact that sex for me is very emotional. It always has been. And that is why I knew that I needed to take a step back from doing it. I knew that I needed to just separate myself from it. And these past 6 months have really shown me how much clarity I do have because I am not emotionally intertwined with somebody who doesn't care about me and doesn't value me. And I could have only done that by taking a step back, as I've done, and being on my own for a while. If you are also a lover girl, I know that you will completely hear me when I say this, but sex is emotional. Sex is emotional for lover girls because we feel very deeply. We are empaths and we want to feel very connected to the people who we are choosing to let in. And that is exactly why hookup culture for me is a no. I've done it, but that era is long gone. The next thing I learned in my 6-month celibacy period is that I was filling a void. And this is kind of related to everything I've already said, but very specifically, I was filling a void within myself. And I feel a little emotionally conflicted with this one because since this podcast inception, I've talked to you guys so much about self-preservation and self-respect and really being in tune with yourself, right? And as much as I've spoken so highly about standing on business and being your best self and not letting anybody take advantage of you, all of that, as much as I've talked about all that, and that is all still very much true, I myself am a human being who is still learning and still growing every single day. And I say this because I have sometimes taken all of what I've ever said on this podcast in terms of really taking care of yourself and emotionally threw it out the window because I was trying to fill a void because I was sad. I was trying to fill a void because I was lonely. And this past 6 months has allowed me to do a lot of deep reflection. Truly, I have just seen myself do a 180 in this category of life. And this category is pretty sensitive. I mean, we're talking about as intimate as you can get with sex. And I believe it is important to say that I personally thought that engaging in sex meant that I was wanted. And I've always wanted to feel wanted. I was truly filling a void for so long. I was filling the void of not being chosen, literally ever. Even in the relationships I've had 3 relationships thus far in my life. But even in the relationships I've had, I think about the fact that I didn't feel fully secure in any of them. Let's see, my first boyfriend was 19. So my dating history spans from 19 to 26. Within that 7-year span, I had those 3 boyfriends. And I chalk it up to not knowing myself super well yet, because I really didn't. I fully did not. I've talked to you guys about how I really grew so much about 5 years ago now. Actually, when I left that last relationship, I grew so much in myself and I finally started to give a shit about myself and not let other people dictate who I was and what I could be. But it's important to go back and to reflect and unpack that time period, that 7-year time span where in those relationships, I felt such a deep void. Even though I was in a relationship, I did not feel fully secure in them. And that was a lot of work that I had to do in myself to feel comfortable with myself. I didn't feel comfortable with myself, which is why I probably felt very insecure in those relationships. And it wasn't just me, of course. Those 3 people were not my people, which is what inevitably ended those relationships. But I have been filling a void with guys for a long, long time. And I'm glad that I'm finally being honest about that because that is helping me heal from that trauma. The next thing I have learned in my 6-month celibacy period is that it is okay to want it. It is okay to want to have sex. Okay? It really is okay to crave it to want it. If you didn't know, sex is a biological need. It's a biological craving. It is literally on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. But it is not weird. And you are not wrong for wanting to have sex, wanting pleasure, and craving that intimacy. It is biological, first of all. And me personally, I have always had a very sensual side. I don't show it really at all unless I am super comfortable with the person who I'm around. I want to make that very clear. And I think that's how it should be. Of course, you could do whatever you want. I am not the be all and end all on what's right and what's wrong. We've covered this. But personally, I do like that I reserve that side of me for the people who deserve it. I say this because I do not want to abandon my sensual side. And I think it's important to talk about the fears and the hesitations about this 6-month celibacy period, because yes, I've learned a lot of really fruitful, good things. I've gained clarity and discernment, and I feel just emotionally way more regulated, truly. But it's equally important for me to say that I have this fear about losing the sensual, passionate, intimate side of me because I have not engaged in it in so long. I really hope that lands with somebody. That has been something I've been thinking about for a very long time. And it's kind of made me feel sad because pleasure is important. Pleasure is a very important part of the human experience, and I want to engage in it, but I want to engage in it on my terms and in a very healthy way. I don't want to fill a void, and I don't want to go about it in a way that is stripping myself of my value and my respect, of course, but I want to feel that hyper feminine energy because it's coursing through me, and I want to tap into that. It's a big way that I connect with my feminine. This is also something that is extremely important to me because of a childhood trauma that I went through. I was 16. This was in high school, and I remember I was coming in to my classroom late because I had a doctor's appointment, and I sat down and we had assigned seats. So this guy always sat next to me, and I sat down and I was wearing a tank top, and this guy said really loud, intentionally, so half the class heard, and he said, "Oh, you have man arms." I'm 31 years old. So that was a very long time ago, and it still rings in my ear a lot because I am strong and I have a lot of masculine energy. I am very straightforward. I'm very blunt. I get shit done. I feel like I'm a powerhouse in a lot of ways, which those are traditionally masculine qualities, right? But I am also so feminine. I am so hyper feminine. I'm a girly girl. Look at what I'm wearing if you're watching this on video. I do not ever want to abandon that side of me, especially after some of the things I've heard all my life. It's very important for me to feel so womanly and so feminine. Sex is a big way to do that. Of course, there's so many ways to do that, but sex is a big way to do that. Feeling submissive and letting someone take control, that is very important to me. So it's okay to want it, and it is okay to crave it, and it is okay to lean into your feminine. It is encouraged, but doing so in a healthy manner is the most important thing. All I'm really saying is that I want to engage in the act with somebody who will reciprocate my energy, with somebody who will actually take care of me emotionally and let me be in my feminine. I want it all. Okay, I want the intense makeouts. I want the pinning on the wall. I want to be carried around. I want everything. I literally do. I want it so bad. I just gave myself chills because, like I said, this energy courses through me every single day, and I keep it under lock and key. And I only show this to the very few people in my life who have ever made me feel like I can just undo myself with them. The girls who get it, get it. But you are not just a warm body. You are not just good for sex. You are a whole person, and you deserve love, healthy love, and self-respect. All right, so now we're going to pivot a little bit. I want to talk about the ways I have gotten through this 6-month period. Like I said, 6 months for me personally is a long time, and it's been tough. I am not even going to sit here and lie to you because why would I do that? This is my podcast, and I will say every single thing I feel. And truly, it has been really, really hard in a lot of ways, but also easy in a lot of ways, but hard. A little bit of a adjustment period, I would say. So I first want to direct you to 2 different podcast episodes that I already have out. The first one is number 22, You Want to Feel Hot Again. And this one talks about self-pleasure. We talk about vibrators. We talk about making sure that you are pleasuring yourself, because that is super important. And truthfully, that is how I've gotten through the 6-month period for the most part. We have other things to talk about, but that is pretty high on the list. And then the next episode I want to direct you guys to is number 33. This one is titled What Turns You On? And in this episode, we talk about a lot of things that we find attractive in the opposite sex, a lot of things that are non-sexual turn-ons, because I think that's important too. Yes, this whole episode is talking about sex and intimacy, but intimacy can be found in non-sexual ways. So I really enjoy listening to that episode every now and then, because I can remind myself there are so many other ways that I can feel that craving without actually having sex. Next, I want to talk about books, because if you know me, you know that I'm a book girl. So for my girls who love reading and love books, listen closely. I have been loving reading for over a year now at this point, but I love, love, love books that give me a high. And I feel like you know where I'm going with this. Books that have a lot of sexual undertones and quite literally give vivid sex scenes. You get aroused just by reading pages. I love it. I have been reading a few in the past few months, and that has really, really helped so much. I cannot even tell you so much. So I wanted to tell you a few series that I have read. I've read them in the past 6 months, so that has really helped so much with getting through this period. The first rec is the Fourth Wing series. I actually just finished the second book yesterday. I believe that there are 3 pretty vivid sex scenes in the book spread out. Perfect. Book 1 also had a good amount of sex scenes in there, so that was fun to read. And then also the category of smut, which is essentially sexual books. I have been reading the Butcher and Blackbird series, and I've read 2 of the 3 books. I actually have book 3 that I do want to read this year. Those are so good. They are so descriptive and so vivid, and it will do the job. And then the last series I wanted to talk about is the Lights Out series by Navessa Allen. I read book 1. I do want to read book 2. Book 1 was so good. Oh my God. Spicy, hot, sexy. Love it. So as you can hear from how I'm talking about them, those really, really helped to get through this period. Just take my word for it. I wanted to end off this episode with some reminders. This is definitely incorporating our theme of Love Month, but also just remembering that you are not behind. I understand there's a lot of comparison that happens as well, since we're all on social media. And I personally have fallen victim to the comparisons and feeling like I'm behind and feeling like, when am I going to have that love that I so crave? Because I'm a lover girl, right? So these are some reminders I found on Instagram. I'm actually just going to read them off my phone. Number 1, you deserve the same love you show to others. Number 2, self-love isn't selfish. Number 3, you are enough with or without a partner. Number 4, true happiness is found within. Number 5, whoever made you feel like you didn't deserve to be loved never deserved yours in the first place. And number 6, stop comparing your relationships to what you see on social media. Relationships are messy, they require hard work, and are constantly evolving and growing. There's far more to what you see online. I feel like those reminders are important to hear all the time, but I feel like it's even more heightened when we see the Valentine's Day content. Of course, Valentine's Day was already a week and a half ago at this point, but I think it's important to remember that you are not behind. So many people are experiencing the same exact things as you, which is, again, going back to the beginning, why it is so important for me to use my voice and share things that are uncomfortable, things that are a little personal, but to help other people remember that you are not alone in how you feel. You are not the only one experiencing something, and you're not behind. You really aren't. I mean, I have been single for 5 years now. No. Wait, how long? Yeah, I have been single for 5 years now, intentionally, and I've been celibate for 6 months and counting. Who knows how long I will be, but what I can tell you is that I am only interested in giving myself to somebody who deserves it, and I hope that's how you feel too. We just need to remember we deserve healthy love and we deserve healthy connections. You're not wrong for wanting sex. You're not wrong for craving intimacy and love. We all deserve it. And I do believe that the right people will come along and make us see that the wait was worth it. And I think you just have to trust me on that one. And with that, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Misunderstood. Remember to rate the show 5 stars on Apple and Spotify and follow it wherever you're listening. Join our Geneva group chat. It is always linked in the description of every single podcast episode. Send in a question or ask for advice on our jot form. It is always linked in every single podcast episode. Hang out with me on my other socials, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest at nkmadani. And I will talk to you guys in the next one.